This might have been one of the hardest quarters to date for me as a business professional. I feel like I've been running since December. I did the year planning, and then I had 3 different people come and stay in my house for a week at a time in January. And then February was fully dedicated to getting ready for South by Southwest. And then we were at South by Southwest. In the meantime, I'm writing a book, I'm launching a business, I'm doing all of these things. I think I've hit my wall. About 2 weeks ago, I literally just was like, it's 10 a.m. I'm already ready for a nap. I don't know what to do.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been hearing it from so many different people. Like leaders, not leaders, like corporate, nonprofit, startups, like what's going on? Welcome to the Manage Chaos podcast, where we give you the startup business rundown in less time than it takes for you to get to work. I'm Rachel Anderson.
And I'm Katrina Purcell.
And today we're tackling a topic that's close to every founder's heart, and often their pounding, overwhelmed, stressed heart. It's managing stress.
Rachel, I'm pretty sure that stress is my middle name, right? And honestly, like you said before, I've just been running, I think, since December. And I kind of feel like in order to have this level of stress, it has to be super managed.
I agree. I mean, I have experienced lots of different kinds of stress throughout my career. I literally will manifest physical, like hives or allergies or like random things that tell me that my body's overwhelmed. And honestly, this is one of the first times where I have mentally been able to identify I'm at my breaking point before my body does. And I'm like, what do you even do? I've never known. I've only ever known it's too much.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I think we've all gotten to that point and we've got some episodes coming up on burnout, right, too, which is sort of that extreme level of stress.
That's right. And we're doing that because this is the month of May, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think you and I, when we were talking about this a couple months ago, really knew that it was important this year to address that.
We did. I don't know that we knew how applicable it would be to ourselves. Maybe we were predicting that it would be applicable.
Maybe.
I think we both took on a lot this year, and we both knew that we wanted it to be a really big year, right? And so I think when you're taking those big swings, there's inherently more stress.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, big swings mean big risk, and risk can be really stressful. And, I'm feeling so lucky because we have some really great guests that are going to be part of our episodes this month. So just as a little promo, we don't normally promo this really, but stay tuned, like subscribe, follow along, or tell us what you want us to hear. But for today, I think we're starting in a really good place, which is just really the broad category or conversation about how we really are managing stress. So, what are some of the unique sources of stress that founders really face? Because it's really different based on what you do in a company and what kind of company you're in.
I think financial pressure is one of the biggest ones, right? And we talked about this in our episode around funding, just uncertainty around funding, uncertainty around cash flow. Sometimes that does lead also to uncertainty in your personal finances. So sometimes as a founder, you might not actually be taking any money out of the business yet. You might be prioritizing reinvestment into the business or reinvestment into your people. And so, there's a lot of uncertainty, which inherently creates stress, right? When we're not sure how something's going to turn out. Time constraints, which are a promise for everyone, but I think when you're a founder, you feel like you have to always be on. There's not really someone else necessarily to rely on. And so if you're having an off day, sometimes you don't always feel like you have the opportunity to do that, right? You've got to figure out how to just be on. Because of the level of responsibility that you have, right? There's the weight of sort of your employees' livelihoods if you have employees, your customers' expectations, right? If you already have investors, what are they asking you for? What are they looking for? If you already have a board, what do they need from you? What are they asking for? And then the uncertainty not only of just funding, but like the unknown right now. If you're a CPG company who's manufacturing outside of the US, I mean, there's just so much uncertainty. It feels like every decision that you make is so high stakes that there's just so much ramification from just making what feels like a very small decision, and it can turn into something much larger. For me, I think you also can feel a little isolated. And for this, I have turned to networking groups, and I have tried to find other women who are doing the same thing as me, or, other founders in general who understand the pressure. But it can be extremely isolating to sort of feel like you're the only one in your company who can make all these decisions and all these choices, and what could happen is really your fault, right? Good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I was on a phone call just this morning with someone who is going to get married and they're so excited and it's such a great time. And the primary question they had was, how do I turn it off? How do I can I
Hmm.
realistically walk away as the owner and founder of this business? There's people that rely on you. There's clients that rely on you. There's work that has to get done. If you spent any time creating your KPIs, your key performance indicators and metrics, then you might even as a leader understand the value of 1 minute or one
Hmm.
hour of lost working time, which can add to that compounding urgency that you're always on. And I think that that's a huge source of stress. It is for me. That's one of the things that like really gets me is like, if I don't work right now, there's a monetary value associated to that loss of time. And is it worth it for this other
Yeah.
thing that I want to do? So with that, there's no getting away from stress. I feel like as a founder, as a startup owner, you sort of are buying into a certain level of stress. And not all stress is bad, not all stress is burnout. But what are some healthy coping mechanisms for managing that stress in a short term perspective? Even if that short term is 3 months, right? Sometimes
You're
that's
gonna you're
that.
you're gonna hate the first one,
Oh gosh. Okay.
but it's it's prioritization, right? So not
I don't know how to do
everything,
that.
yeah,
Everything is
exactly.
urgent.
Not everything is a burning fire. Not everything is urgent. In many cases, there are not lives at risk if you do not complete a certain task. As founders, a lot of times the deadlines that we're setting are literally just deadlines that we set, right? There's not anything relying on them. There's not any reason that we picked those deadlines. We just did. And we tend to think that we're going to get a lot more done in a day than we actually can get done in a day. So we tend to overestimate how much we can get done in a day, but we underestimate how much we can get done in a couple of weeks. Right. And so starting to think through either time blocking, using the Eisenhower matrix, or even just learning to say no to things, learning to kind of say, hey, actually, that sounds really interesting, but at this point in time, no, I cannot take on anymore. Mindfulness, right? So I myself use a mindfulness coach. We're actually going to talk to her for an episode, and I'm super excited about that. But just figuring out what calms you, right? What relaxes you? For me, that's getting outside. It's being in touch with nature, which seems weird for a city girl, but going to the park and being able to kind of just like hear the birds chirping and recenter myself, right? For some people, it might also be social connections, right? For me, it's not because I'm an outgoing introvert. I'm a little weird that way. So for me, like being in a big social engagement like South by Southwest, I'm pretty sure it took me 2 solid weeks to recover and be ready to be back in a room full of people again.
I mean, honestly, I'm an extrovert and I also think I took 2 weeks. I was like, I cannot so much.
I just can't. I was like, first of all, we were in 12 places, every single hour. Like there were so many things to do. And I came home and I just thought, oh my God, I need to go into like some sort of introvert bubble and I don't know how to recover.
I need my little cave of darkness to just like recharge.
Exactly. So I think the biggest thing is really figuring out what works for you. And it's going to be different for everyone, right? But
Yeah.
the foundational thing is prioritization because you can't apply, mindfulness or, going outside or social connection. You can't apply any of those things if your plate is just so full that you feel like you can't even take a moment to do it.
Yeah, I think that that's really smart. And, you and I have talked before on this podcast, and even we build out a resource. We should link it below about the stoplight method, which I
Hmm.
think is a helpful one. And, sometimes we think about priorities from like a big project perspective, but as leaders, we often see things crop up all the time. And so maybe we go to a weekly priority. So I have all these things, but what is my priority this week? One of
Hmm.
those methods you can do, the Eisenhower is a great one, like time management skills have abounding options. But one that I really like is the stoplight method just because it's so simple. And it's just exactly what it looks like. There's a couple different versions, but the one I use is like red means stop it right away, or even just punt, like I just can't do it right now. That's next week's problem, or that's next month's problem, or quarter, or
Hmm.
whatever. Yellow is sort of like maybe reassess, like nice to have. Maybe it's even just like pause for right now, see what's going on there. Green is like, yes, this is still really important. Go, go, go. And so you could just kind of have these like gut check moments, maybe Monday morning or Friday afternoon as you're getting ready to transition for the week. And just really keep yourself like short-term focused on the thing that moves the needle right now. And I think that also is really important as it relates to stepping away for knowing what you define as urgent. Because for one person, it might be this client, and for someone else, it might be this project, right? So really knowing before you try and just totally like take time off or whatever is doing that own prioritization. But with that in mind of like, here's really good short-term tools, those don't always work for long-term resilience, which is really where we have to go. What would you say to founders who want to really build that and try to prevent burnout before it even happens?
I think the first one is really hard for us because as founders, we like to have big visions, big goals, right? And so setting realistic expectations, what does that even mean? Right? I mean, how can we realism? What? But I think
I live in realism. I'm a founder. Like, come on.
Exactly. But having a strong support system, having people who can kind of sit down with you, look at what you're trying to accomplish in a week and really kind of walk you through like, is this possible? These all the things that really need to get done. Delegating and empowering your team. If you've hired people, you hired them for specific skills that they have. So being able to really delegate and kind of not be that level of control freak, right? Decide the things that are important, keep those on your plate, but empower your team to do the things that they're really good at or that are in their zone of genius. And really defining boundaries. Right? Setting boundaries, sticking to the boundaries. I think one of the key things in my adult life has been learning how to not only define boundaries, but then keep them, right? Enforce them and not let, right now, Daisy, right? Our 1-year-old puppy is really testing boundaries and it's like a daily struggle, but really, sticking to your boundaries, and practicing self-compassion, right? You got into this for a reason. You have come up with this idea. It's pivoted or it's evolved because of outside things that have come. But having compassion for yourself that you are the person to be completing, what you're doing right now, and that there is a broader goal here, right? There's a bigger, grander vision, and just understanding that it will happen in the timing that it's supposed to happen. It doesn't need to happen all right this very second. I think I'm not talking to myself a little bit.
You know what? Sometimes I feel like that's what these podcasts are, is just us reminding ourselves of the things that we need to do to be well, healthy, and successful, which sometimes overlap and sometimes don't. But you know what? I like it. I like it. So in the next month, we're going to dive in a lot deeper to these topics, including what does it actually mean to have burnout, because it's not just it's not just stress. Those are not synonymous, even though we've gotten excited about that word as a culture. We're going to talk about how to spot and fix that on your team. We're talking about imposter syndrome. We're talking about mindset, like you said. We have lots of guests. Is there anything in particular you're really looking forward to deep diving in the next month that we get to share with everyone here?
I have already, so secretly, I've already recorded the episode on burnout, which I'm really, with our guests, and I'm really excited to kind of dive more into what really is burnout, because I think it's become kind of like an in phrase almost, right? People just like to be like, oh, I'm so burned out. And it's like, okay, but like, first of all, it's not a badge of honor. But second of all, like, there's a level of burnout that is so extreme. Right. And Marissa, our guest who talks about burnout, talks about going in the hospital and being so burnt out that she ended up in the hospital. And I didn't actually talk about it on that episode, but I also at one point was in the middle of such a huge work project that I ended up in the hospital. And there was a lot of other factors at play. But, I think we kind of use burnout as just like this trendy thing to do. And in reality, it's not, right? It's a bad thing that takes a long time to recover from. And so I'm really excited to kind of dive into that and ways that people can recognize that they're on the verge and keep themselves from kind of going all the way over that cliff.
I love that. So I know this episode has given us a great opportunity to remember some of those tactics that we should strive for, and maybe even some new tactics that we can try to employ the next time I get stressed out anyway, which will probably be
later this afternoon.
5 minutes from now. But if anyone out there has a favorite stress management tip, we would love it if you would comment or DM us or put it on our social media so that we can talk about it with the collective, because great ideas are just right there in community. So please subscribe to us on YouTube and wherever you listen to our podcast. We love to connect, and we hope you're feeling a little bit more mellow and less stressed after this episode, or at least maybe on your way there. We'll talk to you next time on another episode of the Managed Chaos Podcast.